and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the manga and a couple light novels as well that I got this month. There is a huge amount, scarily so, in fact. So I'm just going to get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first up, we're going to talk about standard trim manga. I have a couple. The first one being a Shonen Jump title, one of the few that I regularly follow. And so there's a couple volumes here, closing a gap and catching up with the English releases. So we have volume 39, 40, and 40 and 43 for this series. So I already have 41 and 42. And this is the completed sports shonen series about, well, majority about high school volleyball, namely our protagonist Hinata, who really loves volleyball but isn't particularly naturally gifted in the sport. He's also shorter, so isn't really seen as suitable for volleyball, where height really does give you an advantage. But he has an incredible jump, and his ongoing rivalry / partnership with his teammate Kageyama, this character. I don't really think I need to introduce Haikyuu much. I think most people are aware of what it is, what it's about. It's personally my favorite shonen sports series kind of ever that I've read, especially considering I haven't read every shonen sports series that there is, and I do enjoy other ones, but this one, I just love the character. I just love everything about it. Really, I love everything about it. This is not the last or second last. This is the second from the last volume. So it's 45 volumes all up. And for those in the know, this series does have a time skip at the end. So we do see these characters a little bit later on. I love it. I love Haikyuu so much. That really shouldn't be a surprise. It's one of the few series that I was following week to week back when it was being released. And one of the few series that is over 20 volumes that I very willingly and excitedly continue to buy. And I think 45 volumes is sort of the perfect length for the series. It just did everything that it needed to. It explored every avenue, and it just was really wonderful experience whilst it lasted, and revisiting it is still just as fun and powerful and exciting and enjoyable. So really happy to have these. Obviously I've read them. I don't know when I'll do a big reread for the whole series. Maybe at some point. I don't know. Maybe when the last volume comes out, but no promises. But it is one that I do highly recommend. It's one that I think, typically people enjoy it. I haven't met too many people who just outright dislike it. The anime is super fun and wonderful as well. So yeah, Haikyuu. Really, really, really wonderful little series. We have some shoujo beat stuff. Another series where I have multiple volumes, and that is Yeon of the Dawn, volume 27 and 28. I haven't read 28 yet. I just received it the other day. But 27 was great. Loved this book. Love the series in general. This is a ongoing shoujo, I guess low fantasy, historical, political thriller, maybe, about a princess who is ousted from her kingdom after her father is murdered by the boy that she likes, who is also her cousin. And so in order to reclaim her rightful throne, her position. She discovers, it's revealed that she is the reincarnation, or the current version of the Crimson King, Crimson Dragon King of legend and lore, who historically had 4 dragon warriors who helped him found and settle, I guess, the whole kingdom itself. So she goes around looking for these 4 dragon warriors, finds them. Now she is going around the country and helping them with issues, whilst also trying to navigate the politics of the reality of the situation, as well as struggling with her own personal feelings about this person who's now the king/emperor, who she has really had a long history with and cared about very deeply, but has now murdered her father. There's a lot going on in this series, and I love it to bits. It is super wonderful. Even at 28 volumes, it's just incredibly compelling, and I really don't know if I ever want it to end, because it just continues to be phenomenal. Some of the best stuff coming out right now, personally, and just continues to be even better than I think what you can expect. But yeah, Yeon of the Dawn, and it's funny as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next series too. But Yeon of the Dawn, really wonderful. Definitely try it if you haven't. It's a series that has gotten very high praises from majority of everyone that I've ever known to have tried it. The anime is also super, super good, although very unfinished and a little bit kind of prologue-y. It doesn't quite get into the meat of the story, because it isn't until this last or second last episode that we meet our final dragon in that series. So that is certainly a series aching for a continuation. But manga is wonderful, and I definitely encourage you to try it. And another longer one in my collection that I'm very excited to continue reading. Shoujo Beat volume, this one I just read this week, and that is Snow White with the Red Hair, volume 12 by Sorata Akituki. This is an ongoing shoujo, royalty romance, I guess, about a young woman called Shirayuki who has bright red hair, which is very eye-catching, and in her homeland, her home kingdom, she is kind of cornered or picked out by the prince and told to come to the castle, and you'll be mine because I want you and your red hair. And she's like, no, thank you. That's the worst. So she cuts her hair and she runs off into the forest because she wants to not only have personal freedom, obviously, but she wants the freedom to continue to train to be a herbalist, to be able to help people, whilst she is in the woods escaping this prince. She coincidentally runs into some people in the woods who she helps, and who turned out to be another prince and his entourage from the neighboring kingdom. And she helps them out, they help her out, and she and this prince really hit it off. There's kind of an instant interest in each other, but he offers her a place to stay, kind of salvation maybe, or sanctuary, that's the word I'm thinking of, at the castle, at his kingdom, and encourages her to become a court herbalist within his kingdom, not only because he is interested in her romantically and thinks they get on pretty well, but because he knows that she has the talent and the personal drive to achieve her dreams. And it's super good. Oh my gosh, I love this series so much. I love it so much. It's fun, it's funny, it's sweet, it's really romantic. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have to say that about a romance series, but I really do like Zen and Shiroyuki, their relationship. Additionally, I like both of them with Obi, who's her personal guard / bodyguard. Man, this series is setting up legendary OT3. Like, honestly, prime material, this series. This particular volume is so good. We have Coronation, and it's, I love it. I loved so many chapters in this particular volume, and it ends on it introduces a pretty major conflict, which is quite interesting and exciting, and like, you know, made me go, oh, I gasped a little bit. Not because there's never conflict in this series, but it's an interesting way that the conflict is being introduced, because it isn't, unlike, and I mean, I'm being mean, but unlike some more typical like high school shoujo where a lot of conflict comes out of jealousy, comes out of misunderstandings, that's not the case, and the conflict actually plays really well into what makes this couple so strong, i.e. supporting each other, and their occupations and like their personal goals. So, it was so good. Has been handled really well so far. Also, big cliffhanger that makes you like lift an eyebrow, because it's pretty suggestive. It's not gonna be the thing that it's suggesting, because it's not, but I mean, maybe, but I don't think it is. That's the misunderstanding. It's trying to play you as an audience member. But it was a pretty shocking cliffhanger, gotta say. But yeah, I loved this volume so much. I continue to adore the series. This is ongoing at like 20 something volumes, so again, a longer one in the collection. And it just continues to be so good. I don't want it to end. And I just want to keep reading about Shiroyuki and Zen, both separately and together, and all of the people around them, their friends and family and everything else. Also, character development for the side characters is phenomenal. That prince I mentioned earlier that basically just wanted Shiroyuki for her hair, his character arc has been so good. Oh my gosh. Raj. Oh my gosh. He grew up so much. But yeah, great series. Highly recommend it. Also, none of these are like teens. I think Shiroyuki's 19, but the rest of the cast is like 19, 20 plus. So we're not dealing with like high school teenagers. They're not in our high school anyway, but it's nice to have a little bit older protagonists in this type of setting as well. So yeah, Snow with the Red Hair. Definitely check it out. And this volume made me tear up and get all emotional. So yeah, super duper good. Highly encourage you to read it. So next is some Yen Press standard trim manga. First is a continuation of a series that I really love. Fantastic series, highly recommended, as most of the stuff that I buy would be, because I only buy stuff that I enjoy. But anyway, this is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun Volume 7 by Aida Iro. This is an ongoing supernatural mystery about a high school girl who, after summoning Hanako-san at her school, hoping for luck in romance, discovers that the Hanako-san at her school is actually a boy ghost, aka Hanako-kun, which is why that's the title. For those who aren't aware, Hanako-san is like a urban legend in Japan, quite common, about a little girl who can only be summoned from a particular bathroom stall in a girl's bathroom, and she'll grant you a wish, which is why the title is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. It's not a weird thing. It's not like a gross fetishy implication. It's just that's part of the urban legend. So first and foremost, putting that out there. But, so this actual volume continues the arc that was introduced last volume, where our main character was pulled into a mirror, into another one of the urban legend, the school mysteries at her school. This particular arc is actually adapted in the recent anime adaptation. And it actually, they kind of reshuffled some of the arcs, mainly because I think there was a certain surprise that they wanted to keep for a second season, if and when that happens. But yeah, so this series, I love it anyway. The art is, I love the art style. Obviously, yokai manga appeals to me a lot. Ghosts, mysteries, the supernatural just in general. And it just continues to be so, so good. There's, oh my gosh, there's a couple different mysteries going on right now, and it's super compelling. It also plays around with the unclear morality of the undead or the supernatural. Obviously, their morality is different from us mere humans. It's pretty interesting. They do it really well. The stakes have been raised quite a bit over the last couple of volumes, so it'll be interesting to see how that continues. And I think we're halfway through what is released in Japan. I think this is at 14 volumes in Japan. It might be 15 now, but we're slowly catching up. This does have a semi-regular release schedule from Yen Press, and I always buy it from my local comic store because it is faster and cheaper than what I can get from anywhere else. So yeah, and I legitimately do love this series so much. This is also a series that if you're a digital reader, you can actually catch up much faster, because I think 12 or 13 volumes, maybe 14 volumes even, have already been released digitally. It does keep very up to date. This was one that transitioned to print a little bit later than typical for Yen. So, love the series. Love this cover as well. Really like the pink. And I just cannot wait for volume 8 whenever that decides to come out. Another Yen Press volume, another very pink volume, but this is a debut for a new series, and that is Golden Japanesque, a splendid Yokohama romance by Kaho Miyasaka. So this is, I presume, an ongoing series about a teenage girl called Maria who has bright blue eyes, golden hair, but she's of mixed heritage. Her father was a Westerner, but because of the implications of that, because of her mother's fear of being shamed, of being called like a prostitute, etc., etc., she has up until this point like hidden her eyes, dyed her hair, and is very afraid of letting people see what she typically looks like. She kind of hates the way she looks. And her mother she's not from a super well-off family or anything. Her mother, I believe, is either delivering something or looking for work. And this is set in the Meiji era, so sort of the turn of the century. So when westernization was sort of first hitting and influencing Japanese culture. She, through a series of various events, Maria ends up running into the young master, a teenage boy from a very wealthy household in which her mother was trying to get work and all sorts of things. And he initially makes fun of her. He finds her quite, like, dowdy and that, but he keeps kind of running into her. They keep interacting with each other, and over time, or at one point, well, no, he picks up her handkerchief, and she's got like a embroidered M on it for, Maria, which is her name. And he recognizes that. He returns it to her, and he keeps kind of trying to spook her and upset her. Like, he tricks her with frogs and insects and things like that. And she doesn't react because she knows that, she's been taught that giving a reaction will just make, people tease you harder. And obviously, after a lifetime of judgment and bigotry because of how she looks, she just is very good at playing it cool. But yeah, so at some point when she's talking to this guy, or they run into each other again, it starts raining. He tries to get her to, start finding cover, but then the dyer hair is being washed out, and then something happens. They both end up in the river, and obviously he discovers that she has this beautiful golden hair and these bright blue eyes, and he calls her the Little Mermaid, or he likens her to the Little Mermaid. Some more misunderstandings from there happen because she's not very well read, she's not very well educated, and isn't familiar with the Western story of the Little Mermaid. But from there, they've got like this weird tentative friendship, perhaps romance. He's the first person to really call her like beautiful or captivating or stunning or whatever, by the way she looks. Obviously, she's typically had a lot of fear and resentment and like bullying over the way she looks. So she's kind of intrigued by that. And he, coming from a much more affluent family, starts to gift her things, and also there's all sorts of stuff going on. I'm a fan of this. Well, I'm a fan of historical fiction anyway. This isn't like the best thing that I've read, but I did think this was a pretty decent first volume. I hope that the male, like the romantic lead, he improves a little bit. It'd be nice to see Maria grow a little bit more, especially now that she has the opportunity to gain some more confidence. It'll be interesting to see the direction that this particular series goes, but it's very pretty. I don't think the art's like super memorable. Like, it's pretty typical, I'd say, shoujo art. But there's a lot of potential here. I hope it's good. And it was a solid first volume. I'm not singing its praises because I did have issues with it, but I'm willing to give it a couple volumes to kind of establish itself a bit more. And also, I don't quite know how long this will be. And as I said, I'm kind of a sucker for historical fiction as it is, so hey, we'll see how things go. So we have the large trim manga, again starting with the Viz stuff, another series where I got multiple volumes from, one to fill a gap, the other is the most recent volume, I believe, and that is Blue Flag Volume 4 and 6 by Kaito. This is a completed coming-of-age drama with romance, queer twist to it. It's the story of a couple of high school classmates. These two are childhood friends, and there are many complicated and dramatic intertwinings relational friendships, romances, things like that, wherein these childhood best friends, one of them has feelings for the other. The other, a girl in their class has feelings for one of them and has asked the protagonist to help her with that because obviously they're best friends. Meanwhile, he's started having feelings for her. Meanwhile, her best friend, female best friend, has feelings for her. It's just, there's a lot going on. These poor kids. But I adore the series. I really, really love just how genuine it is for all of it. I know some people have issues with the ending. I understand why, but I also don't. It didn't impact my reading of the series, and it's such an incredible journey. These characters are ones that feel so true to life. They feel so real. Their issues aren't super easily fixed. There's not any. It's a story that really made me feel for the characters. Really made me just want the best for all of them. It was just really effective in its storytelling. All of the characters were really likable, really understandable. It captured the teenage dramatic experience super well. I love the series, continue to adore it, and at 6 volumes now in English, we are only 2 from the end. It's completed in 8 volumes. And I'm just so happy that we do have this series licensed and in print and available for me to put on my shelves and reread whenever I want to. Because, it's wonderful, and I highly, highly recommend it if you like teen coming-of-age dramas. Yeah, it's so good. Next, we have another completed in Japanese and completed series that I read via Manga Plus, but still ongoing in print from Viz, and that is Hell's Paradise, Volume 7, Jigoku Raku by Yuji Kaku. This is a story of a bunch of death row inmates who are offered a second chance and a new identity if they are able to retrieve a elixir of immortality for, I don't remember if it's the Shogun. I think it's the Shogun, right? And they're sent to this island to retrieve this in a battle royale-esque, match. But little do they know that on this island there is a whole bunch of creepy, weird flower monsters, and it's a little bit more of a fight for survival than any of them expected. In addition, all of these death row inmates have been assigned an executioner. So for our main character, Gabimaru, his executioner is a young woman named Sagiri, and so the dynamics of the characters in this series is really interesting. I think people may be surprised the more you get into it how much these characters really are appealing, how interesting they are, and you really root for all of them as well. I love the series. I really do. It ticks a lot of boxes for me personally. And I highly encourage people who do like sort of action, horror, mystery, historical settings to check this one out. It has great monster design. It's just super, super wonderful. Kaku Sensei really has a lot of freedom with how he tells the story. I definitely think it would appeal to a lot of people. And we're about halfway through with as of this particular volume. I think there's 12 or 13 volumes in its entirety, so not super duper long either. And I think it's also a perfect length. It tells exactly the right amount of story without kind of over bloating it. But yeah, really looking forward to completing the series in print once we get to that point. Interested to see if Kaku has any new works in the future, because I really love this a lot. And yeah, definitely check out Hell's Paradise if you haven't. It's super good. I think it's getting an anime. I'm pretty sure it's getting an anime. So like this, along with Chainsaw Man, kind of appeals to similar things, I think. Different settings, but I think if you like one, you'll probably like the other. It's a little bit more by the numbers than Chainsaw Man. That one's just out of control, wild. But yeah, definitely give it a look. Speaking of Chainsaw Man, sort of, we have the creator's other prominent work, Fire Punch. So that is a completed series in English and Japanese. So Tatsuki Fujimoto Sensei's earlier works. This one, oh my god, okay, not safe for a lot of people. It really, like with Chainsaw Man, but to a lesser extent in Chainsaw Man, because that was a mainstream Jump title. This is so hyper violent. Cannibalism, sexual assault, rape, bestiality, pedophilia, incest, just the whole gamut of everything, right? But in saying that, and like I said with Chainsaw Man, is that I think Fujimoto uses like sort of the most depraved and taboo subject matter, the shock factor, to get people interested or to kind of initially start his series. And so if you can survive that, there's a huge emotional payoff, and there's some really interesting ideas throughout his entire series. And Fire Punch I read the entirety of digitally on Viz's website, because it is not appropriate for the app, not allowed on the app. But it is there in its entirety if you are wanting to try it before you buy the print edition. Because it's a lot. It's really a lot. But man, this is a dang good series if you can handle it, and if you're not put off immediately by everything that it is. So I have volume 1, volume 2, volume 4, volume 5, and volume 8, which is the final volume, as it says right there. So I basically got the volumes that were available on Amazon for me. So if you don't know anything about Fire Punch, it is set in a far-flung apocalyptic future wherein the world has been under a constant ice age. So continuous snow, no light, nothing can grow. It's freezing. Humanity has just disintegrated. Basically, there's small communities, but the world as we know it has just ceased to exist. Our main character, he despite this ongoing ice age, there are certain people who have been born with kind of superhuman abilities. So our main character, he has this incredible skill of regeneration and healing. Basically, think Wolverine, right? Like he can do that, but even faster than Wolverine. So initially we're introduced to him where he is he severs his limbs, he cuts off his arm multiple times in order to give his severed limbs as food to other people that they know. It's him and his sister, younger sister. And basically the community is subsisting on this teenage boy's severed limbs, his human flesh, obviously, as I said, cannibalism right off the bat. And so after a while, at some point, there's this kind of military force from a larger community who runs into them. They see this sort of cannibalistic process. They don't know that, it's this regenerative skill from this particular young teen, but they see that this town has been cannibalizing people, so one of their individuals who has this, magic power, who can alight things. He has the power of flames that can never be suppressed until is totally burnt out, or the person is dead, right? It's a fire that can never be put out. This individual burns the entire village down. So everyone dies, including the younger sister, who does have healing capacity, but much slower than her brother, so she dies. But because of his healing regenerative abilities, he doesn't die, because he continues to exist. Thus, the fire continues to exist. Thus, over time, over a long time, at least a decade, wherein our main character has to basically learn how to exist whilst excruciatingly on fire, and every pain receptacle going crazy for years and years and years. Relearns, I guess, how to move and talk and exist and think, and becomes the titular Fire Punch. There's other stuff that's going on, but basically he wants revenge for what happened. He's grieving the loss of his sister, wherein there's also solid suggestion that there's, I don't know if initially on his side, but definitely from her side, there's an incestuous interest there. Again, this is the apocalypse, so who knows what's going on. But later on, he runs into various communities, and again, the story goes in a lot of different directions. In a similar way to Chainsaw Man, you can never predict how things will shake out. And over the course of the 8 volumes, it really does turn from something that initially seems very schlocky, and it's always schlocky. It always has this element of a D-level bad action film, right? Or monster movie. And I think it's pretty evident that Fujimoto really likes bad films. He really likes cinema in general, but you can really see his love for bad action horror monster movies in both this and Chainsaw Man. And it really gives something genuine to the story. Both of those, this series in particular has a character who loves movies as well. It's just really interesting. It's really, really interesting. And again, so if you can get over the initial shock and horror, and just a series that throws every kind of inhuman, gross, just completely out of left field, taboo subject at you to see what sticks, then you're actually in for a really fulfilling read that has a lot of very nuanced and interesting and well done messages. But again, like, I think if you can, I mean, Chainsaw Man is less. Chainsaw Man in some ways is crazier and weirder and more out of control, but it is or was a jump title. It does kind of sit a little bit more firmly into what's appropriate. There's not too much discussion of like incest or bestiality or anything in that one. But there is cannibalism still. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, Fire Punch is actually quite good. And if you do like Chainsaw Man, and you're not too afraid to try another one of Fujimoto Sensei's works, I do think Fire Punch is worth the read. Although, again, I would encourage you to try it via the Viz's like Shonen Jump subscription. It's available in its entirety on their website. Do that before you put the money down for the print volumes, if that sounds like something you want to do. For Viz stuff, or general Viz stuff, we have the most recent volume of Full Metal Alchemist, the Full Metal edition by Hiromu Arakawa, with Winry Rockbell on the cover here. We are 2/3 of the way through. There's 18 volumes in all for this Kanzenban edition. Oh my gosh. I haven't reread this part of the story yet. I mean, what do I say? I love Full Metal Alchemist. It was one of my first anime. The original 2003 version. I watched Brotherhood as it came out. I just love this franchise and every iteration that it exists in. That shouldn't really be a surprise for people who've hung around for a while. It was very formative to my manga and anime career, and it continues to do so. I'm really happy that we have gotten these beautiful hardcover retranslated is the big thing for me. Kanzenban editions or Full Metal editions. It also comes with color pages. It's archival quality paper. It's just everything. It's just everything that you would really want from a collector's piece like this. But happily, thankfully maybe, it is also a series that has been released many times in many ways. The 3-in-1 editions, obviously the singles as well. So you can get this series. If you're just wanting the series itself, cheap, you don't really need a fancy collector's editions. There's many ways to purchase it and enjoy the story, and I highly encourage people to purchase it and enjoy the story because it is one of the best shonen action series, in my opinion. I'm biased, but it is a classic for a reason, or a modern classic maybe, and it just continues to be at the forefront of like what really, really good shonen comics can be, right? So, Hiromu Arakawa, I love you. I love this series, and I love Viz for releasing it in a nice, brand spanking new, fancy edition. So what else can I say? I don't really think Full Metal needs an introduction, but I would encourage you to try it if you haven't, especially if you do like action, like adventure stories. It's pretty great. It has a lot of heart. It has some really likable characters. Two very, very, very good anime adaptations, both. And yeah, Full Metal Alchemist. It's wonderful and one of my favorites. Next is a volume from Seven Seas. I think the only Seven Seas. Well, I do have some more Seven Seas, but it's with all the gay manga, so we'll get to that in a bit. But this is volume 2 of My Androgynous Boyfriends by Tamiko. This is a slice of life josei about a young couple in their early to mid 20s, of which the lady of this partnership. She is a magazine writer. She works for a magazine, and her partner is a part-time model. He works in a clothing boutique store. He also is kind of just like a house husband, basically. Not really. He does have a job, but he is also very much into how he looks. He's part of the androgynous or genderless fashion movement. So he puts a lot of effort into how he dresses, his makeup, his personal care, and he's gorgeous because of that. And that's really how these two met and started interacting. We learned that the girl, she's always had a real love for beautiful people, a real adoration and fascination with them, and devotion is probably the right word. And when they met in high school, she encouraged him to start social media because she knew that he definitely would have people interested in following him. He'd be very popular, and he kind of just liked her friendship. He really appreciated her a lot and her interests. He found her very passionate, and he kind of was pretty smitten very early on. And so the two of them have been together for a very long time, and they just have a really sweet, lovely day-to-day relationship life. And other people may be a bit confused about them. I know several of her coworkers think she's a lesbian because, obviously her boyfriend is very pretty. And it's just a really positive, wonderful, sweet, lovely series featuring an established relationship, a committed romance, and gender non-conforming characters who aren't afraid of their gender identity or sexuality just because of the way that they look or the clothes that they wear or the way that they decide to present themselves. And I think that's a really positive message. It's something that I think more people need to be comfortable with, because as I said, this is the main male character. He is in this genderless or androgynous fashion movement, but he's still a heterosexual cisgendered guy and is very comfortable in that. He doesn't see any issue or conflict in the way he dresses with how he feels about his girlfriend or about himself. And I think, again, really positive. I think more people need to hear that that's okay, that you can look dang cute as a guy and be just as heterosexual, just as cisgendered as anyone else. Fashion choices and makeup and getting manicures and taking care of your skin and things like this, and also roles, gender role, cooking, cleaning, whatever else, shouldn't be gendered. They shouldn't be, but society is the worst. So unfortunately there's a lot of pressure on both sides to conform to gender, strict gender ideals or roles. And I really like how this series dismantles that and continues to do so. Really love the series. This volume has been out for a little while. It took me a little while to pick it up, but I'm super happy that I have, because it just continues to be great. And now I have to wait for volume 3 like the rest of you schlubs. So yeah, My Androgynous Boyfriend by Tamiko. Really, 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 really good. Another really good volume, another continuing series, this one from Kodansha, and that is Magus of the Library by Mitsu Izumi. This, we have the end. The kind of Kafka test is finished. All the characters who have been accepted into this librarian work are now going to train as such. Thea, our main character, he's still very much a fish out of water. I love this series so much. We are introduced to a whole bunch of his kind of classmates, cohort, fellow Kafka in training, and cliffhanger, big good stuff in this volume. Man, I just love the world that this series exists in. It's magical and wonderful. The reverence it has for books is so lovely, and it does so many good things. And I'm still kind of in shock that I hadn't heard anyone even mention this series prior to it being licensed by Kodansha. So I really encourage you to try it, especially if you like books about books, especially if you like kind of low fantasy, sort of Arabian Nights as well setting. Honestly, like, this world could fit in something like a Magi or Magi, when that series was still not jumping all of the sharks. It sits pretty easily into that kind of setting, and all of the characters, or at least Thea is a really interesting character. A lot of the major supporting characters are really interesting. And also it's kind of revealed something important in this particular volume in relation to the story as it's told, which is pretty cool. I love this series. It does so much right, and go read it because it's wonderful. It's fun. It's funny, and it'll be interesting to see how things develop from here, especially considering how it ended. Oh my gosh. Yeah, go try it. They're continuing Kodansha series, and that is volume 3 of The Witch and the Beast by Kosuke Satake. This is a ongoing, modern fantasy fairy tale story about a society where witches exist, and then we have our duo who kind of mitigate the problems that come out of having witches around, whilst one of our main characters is trying to break a curse that was placed on her years ago. And it's it's so good. It's stylish. It's interesting. It's got lots of action. It's got a lot of really appealing characters. It's just dark fantasy is probably a good descriptor. Again, with that sort of fairy tale twist to it, it's pretty dang great, and I loved this volume a lot. The second volume wrapped up a particular story arc. This one started a new story arc, and it'll be interesting to see how Guido and what's his name? The guy kind of get out of the current situation, because there's a lot going on. And the characters can't really rely on their usual tactics to get out of the sticky situation that they're in. If you like stylish, sultry as well as maybe a good word, series, then give this one a shot. It's one that I was pretty interested when it was licensed, and it definitely met expectations and continued to be like right in that sweet spot of just really interesting and compelling and stylish and fantastical and surprising and a little bit eerie and creepy and weird. So it ticks a lot of boxes for me, and definitely give it a shot if you haven't yet. Also, it's just really pretty. The art style is lovely. Next is another Kodansha volume, although I haven't read this one yet because I just got it the other day and I haven't had a huge amount of time for reading. But this is volume 2 of Blue Period by Subasa Yamaguchi. This is an ongoing coming-of-age drama about a teenage boy who later in life, right now, has discovered an interest in the arts, discovered a passion that he hadn't really felt for himself prior. And it's just, I love this series. The first volume was so good. I've heard that the second volume, like, if you weren't even necessarily sold on the first one, the second one is what will make you completely committed to it. It's won a ton of awards in Japan. I cannot wait to sit down and read this one because it just handles the arts super duper well. Realistically, it acknowledges that becoming or like making money from art is very hard. It's a hugely cutthroat industry. It's super hard to break into. There are so many people who dedicate their lives to it and still don't really ever make much of an impact. And in Japan, art education is sort of for the best of the best is super duper elite and difficult to get into. And sort of the result of that can mean, you know, not necessarily a huge payout after the fact. So it's a lot of time and effort and talent and dedication put towards something that ultimately might not be able to sustain you long term, that you can make a living off of. And I think that's really refreshing, but at the same time, the love of artistry and the passion and dedication that artists do have, and this wanting to create and this drive to achieve the things that they're working towards. And it's just, it's so good. And the way that the discussion of value in art is done in the series, or at least the first volume, was just really lovely to see, especially when I think everywhere, but in the West, there's a perception of those who are artists and illustrators who are in the arts, whether it be a musician or an actor or an illustrator, an artist, sculptor, etc., or who do an arts degree, in that it's useless and you're not going to get a job with it, and you're just wasting your time, and you're not going to get famous, there's no money in it. And to a certain extent, yes, it's a hugely undervalued sector, so you're not going to make money from it, and it is a harder path in life comparatively, or at least earning-wise, comparatively to something that's a little bit more quote-unquote reliable, like engineering or medicine or whatever else. But the sheer amount of art that we as people consume, whether it be television or music or illustration, books, whatever it is so high that a recognition of that is just really, really lovely to see. And ultimately as well, for this series, fine arts, painting, sculpting, it's just I understand why the series is so popular and beloved in Japan, and I cannot wait to actually get into this volume. I can't wait to read more, because I know that I'll love it. I just know that I will, and it hasn't disappointed me yet. It's a really strong debut. Check out Blue Period. Next, we have a Square Enix volume. This was to fill a gap. I have the first and third volumes of this, and that is volume 2 of A Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai. This is I think it's an ongoing like web comic or Twitter comic. I think it's also being published in Japan now in an actual magazine. But it's so heartwarming. This is a story of a middle-aged older man who adopts a cat who hasn't been adopted up until this point, is kind of ugly cute. Nobody wanted him. And oh my god, it's so cute. I love it. It's so heartwarming and sweet. And the third volume, like with these later volumes or after the first volume, you learn more and more about this cat and his owner. Well, his owner notably, and the situation that he's coming from and why he's now adopted this cat. And it's just, oh my heart. I love it so much. It's so good. A Man and His Cat is super wonderful. Highly recommend it. Definitely buy it. It's expensive for such a skinny volume, but worth every penny. Worth every penny. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And if you've ever been a pet owner, whether it be cat, dog, fish, rabbit, whatever else, I think there's an element of relatability here for all of us. For all of us. And it's just so good. I love it. Great. Great series. Now we get into the huge stack of BL and Yuri. I'm going to start with the Yuri. Because there's a couple here. More BL than Yuri. But I've read most of them. Not all of them, I will say. But the first... I'll start with the Seven Seas Yuri. First is debut. Most of these are debuts, actually. This is Takako Shimura's Even Though We're Adults, which is a Yuri about two adults who drunkenly hook up after a night out and wake up the next day, and they really kind of click. They really get on. They're both really attracted to each other. Unfortunately, one of them is married. And so there's obviously a conflict there. And even more so, there's a conflict because she doesn't have any problems with her husband. He's not, like, abusive. He's not having affairs. He's just a really solid, sweet, nice guy. And, so much drama. And typically, I dislike cheating in fiction. I dislike sort of Yuri that depicts one of the characters as cheating and having a husband or a boyfriend and not like breaking it off. I dislike so many elements in that are in this manga that typically put me off of a Yuri, but Shimura is able to, I don't know, capture the best in it and make it really interesting, compelling, despite all of this stuff. I think all of the characters are really strong and wonderful, and you see the conflict and the issues and their own inner like turmoil over the situation. And it was really good. For those who don't know, this is the same creator as Wandering Sun, as well as Sweet Blue Flowers. I'm a big fan of hers. I've liked everything that I've read of hers since Wandering Sun. And, this one, I suspected that I would enjoy it, and I wasn't disappointed. I didn't know anything about it going into it, so it was a shock, sort of the premise and the main themes. But man, she did it good. I liked it. It was good, and I can't wait for volume 2. So yeah, give it a shot if it sounds like something you might be interested in. Another Yuri debut. From Seven Seas, another one from a creator I love, and so another one that I suspected I would enjoy, and that is A White Rose in Bloom by Asumiku Nakamura. Again, one with kind of a premise or a setting at least. This is definitely has class S, like private school, Catholic school girl vibes that I dislike in Yuri. But man, if she didn't make me absolutely love it. Her artwork is so atmospheric. The relationship is so interesting. I just, it had me captivated. It had me hooked. I cannot wait for the next volume. So this is the story of a teenage girl called Ruby, who after the kind of messy, well, she's has to stay at school over the holiday break. She goes to like this fancy private Catholic school in London or somewhere in England, I presume. And because her parents are trying to like rekindle their marriage, so she's stuck over the winter break, and it's just her and one of her upperclassmen, Steph, I think is her name, and who's very cool and like unemotional, maybe is the right word. And not many people know very much about her. But she doesn't have, I think she's the kind of adoptive daughter or some related to the principal and or the dean in some capacity, so she stays during the breaks as well. She's an orphan. And over the course of their time spent together over the holidays, they grow closer, and it's just, it's really good. It's really good. Rumors start and conflict happens because other girls are interested in Steph. And Ruby, meanwhile, her parents' marriage is falling apart, which means there might not be any money to continue to send her to this school, so she might have to leave. And oh my gosh, it's so good. Again, Asumiku Nakamura is phenomenal at atmosphere. I just love the way she depicts characters interacting. This is, again, for those who don't know, we currently have quite a few of her works available in English. Her other, I guess, queer-focused work, her BL is Dokusei or Classmates, which has also been released by Seven Seas. We have Utsubora, which is a suspense thriller, as well as Maiden Railways, which is a like short story romance collection, which does have a little bit of Yuri in it, but that's not really the point of that series. A focus on train lines. But yeah, wonderful stuff. Super duper love her work, and yeah, I knew that I'd enjoy this. I just didn't necessarily expect how much I would enjoy this. So definitely gets a thumbs up, a tick of approval from me. As for the Seven Seas Yuri, we have the third and final volume of Goodbye My Rose Garden by Dr. Pepperco, another historical romance. Loved this series. Really, really loved it. It is a period drama about a Japanese woman who moves to England in order to meet her favorite novelist. Ends up becoming the personal maid to a young noblewoman called Alice, who she then discovers has a whole bunch of rumors floating around her about being a lesbian, and obviously the homophobia and the distress and the shock and horror that causes amongst the elite of this upper class British society, and their eventual romance and relationship development. It's super duper good. I loved it. And in 3 volumes, it's sort of the perfect length, short, sweet, to the point, enough drama to get you invested, and the characters fleshed out enough. Really, really wonderful volume. And I'm super happy that I was able to finish this series, complete this series. So, yeah, Goodbye My Rose Garden is great. I look forward to more of Dr. Pepperco's series if we ever see any of them. I think actually we do have Tokyo Pop has been releasing one. It's like a Bang Dream or something. It's a franchise sort of based off of a mobile game series, which is weird and interesting. But hey, I probably won't pick it up, but that is pretty interesting, and I do look forward to more of their work if we ever see it. Last Yuri that I got is also the only one that I haven't read yet. This is put out by Viz, and this is How to Weave Relationship by Tamiful, Volume 1. This is about 2 university students, I believe, who are obviously in a relationship and trying to figure it out. I know this is ongoing. I don't quite know how far it's gotten into the relationship. I know they are actually dating, like they get together fairly quickly and they're trying to figure out things from there. But I do look forward to reading this one. I just haven't generally had the time. Kissing. So yeah, they obviously get together in this volume. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about it. It is one that is pretty positively talked about, regarded. I think there's 4 or 5 volumes maybe in Japanese right now. This, along with like Our Teachers Are Dating, were both very highly anticipated releases from Viz. I still need to get that. Our Teachers Are Dating from them as well. And it's nice to see Viz expand into Yuri more officially like this. Yeah, I can't complain. I look forward to reading this once I do, and I hope it's a positive experience. Okay, on to the BL. First we have, I have a couple Tokyo Pop BL, so I'll start with them. The first being The God and the Flightless Messenger by Haji. This is a, I guess, like, kami focused BL about a Tengu messenger to the gods who hasn't ever, like, his wings didn't come in right, so is kind of seen as, you know, an outcast and whatever else, who one day is instructed by the overruling god of the area, of all this huge mountain range, to go to greet this newcomer god who's just arrived in the area, who is this big fluffy fur ball. And there's something about curse energy going on, and so if typically when gods are, you know, get this curse or bad energy on them, it really impacts them in their powers, but it doesn't seem to affect this new god in the same way, which is interesting and kind of leads to larger implications down the line. But it's just kind of a sweet little romance between this god and this little messenger. And there may be a larger backstory behind them that's implied that they've known each other for longer than our protagonist can remember. But the reason for why he forgot is unbeknownst to him. It's solid. It's sweet. I would say that I don't necessarily know if I'll ever read this again. So it didn't actually leave that much of a positive impression. Like, it's not bad. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was okay. I think it's fine for the sort of story that it is. But I also wasn't in love with it. It's just okay. I think it would appeal to a lot of people, especially if you're looking for something short and sweet, if you like supernatural romance, or like god romances featuring gods and immortals and stuff like that. Then yeah, absolutely check this one out. It doesn't have any sexual content. It's just Short, sweet, to the point. I would even argue that, like, this is made to be a romance. It is meant to be, like, a sexual relationship or romantic relationship. I'd argue that there is quite a platonic aspect to their relationship, which isn't bad. And I think it would be actually a bit more compelling, maybe, if it was a purely platonic relationship. I don't know, really. But it was good. I'm kind of tossing up whether or not I will keep this as of right now. As I said, it didn't super duper impress me, so I don't know if and or when I would revisit the series, especially when I do have other BL that I enjoy that are a lot better than this, or that I feel more strongly about, or even in the same genre, or even like general manga in a similar genre that I'm more invested in. I don't know. Wasn't blown away by this particular volume, and the next one as well I have sort of a similar issue with. But yeah, it wasn't bad. Like, if you enjoyed this, it's not a reflection on the series. It just wasn't one that hooked me, and I don't think that I'd reread it. Continuing on that sentiment is the other Tokyo Pop BL that, like, was fine. It was sweet and cute and whatever, but I'm probably never going to reread it. And this one I probably am going to be getting rid of, is a bad way to phrase it, but I'm probably not going to keep this one. And that is Katakoi Lamp by Kyohei Azumi. This is the story of a cafe owner who thinks that one of his customers has a crush on him, and vicariously starts to get a crush on the customer, who's a college student in the area. But he discovers that the student actually has feelings for the waitress that works at this cafe, and they kind of become friends, but then their relationship develops, and they think that it's unreciprocated and all sorts of things, and miscommunication. Meanwhile, our cafe owner, his best friend from high school, who's like this model, has secretly been harboring feelings for him the whole time. So whilst he's been like bemoaning to him about how his romance to this cute college student isn't going to work out, he's also bemoaning the fact that he's been in love with his best friend for 10 years and whatever else. It's fine. It's cute. It's sweet. It's satisfying in that it, gives you that sort of sugar hit of diabetes-inducing sweetness without too much upset and drama. Short and to the point, but not that interesting, frankly. Sadly, maybe. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Certainly didn't hate it, but it was fine. Like, I'm great that I read it, but I'm definitely not keeping this one around, because it was fine. Like, it was a solid 6 out of 10 fine, which is a passing grade. Like, that's not a bad thing. But it's like it's doing okay. It's not failing. It's just, trucking along. It's just doing everything that it needs to satisfy what the audience wants, but never really excels in any way that would make me want to revisit it ever. So yeah, I mean, again, other series that I enjoy, own, have read multiple times, do this premise and this idea and better execute it better. And so yeah, there's just no real reason for me to be clinging on to this one, especially if I don't love it. Comparatively, the next two Tokyo Pop BL that I'm going to be talking about, I loved, I adored. They were amazing, and I loved them. The first one being, I started with the supernatural one last time with the ones that I wasn't interested in, so I'm going to start with the supernatural one this time. And the most recent of these books that I read, and that is The Cat Proposed by Dento Hayane. This is the story of an office worker who is just worn out, tired, kind of fed up with life. He considers suicide momentarily on his way back home from work, but he's like, oh my god, no, that was crazy. I need to do something. I need to stop being so depressed and worn out and whatever else. He stumbles upon a theater performance, and more specifically a Kando performance, which is a storytelling sort of in a similar vein to Rakugo, whereas Rakugo is sort of fictionalized stories. This is historical stories, and the performer really catches his attention. His voice is immediately interesting and gets him really invested, and it rejuvenates him and it refreshes him. But at the very end of this performance, he notices that the performer actually has the head of a cat. He's a cat, and he's like, oh my goodness, what? And he blinks and is back to a handsome man, and he's like, well, I obviously need some sleep because I'm seeing things. Little does he know that he has stumbled upon the hidden world of the Bakeneko, aka the goblin cats, which are supernatural cats. They're cats who live very long, happy, and fulfilled lives. There's a couple different ways Bakeneko come about, but they're cats with magical powers, with the ability to transform, and so he's told that because he's learnt the secret of Bakeneko society, or that they exist, frankly, he is at risk of being killed and or having his memory wiped. And in order to prevent that, this cat spirit is like, well, it's kind of both of our faults, and the way that we can get out of this is if we become mates. We'll just convince the Bakeneko society that we're married, that we're mates, that we're dedicated to each other, and then you won't have to have your mind wiped. And so he kind of agrees to this, not really knowing what to expect, and kind of, a bit flustered and surprised. But over time, the two of them, you realize they do care about each other, and there's a lot more going on. And oh my goodness, I love this series so much. Did I show you the inside? I love the art style as well. I think it's lovely. I like all of the cat kind of, every so often the Bakeneko, he'll have like cat eyes. I think that's really cool. You can see there's ears in some of this. There's also some spicy elements to this particular volume, if that's something you're interested in. There's some like drama as well, because the difference in lifespan between yokai and humans is played into, and losing the people you love. It's just, it's so good. I loved this volume so much. I really look forward to any more of Dento Hayane's work that we may get, because this was everything that I never knew that I needed. I didn't know anything really about this volume going into it, so it was an absolutely pleasant surprise reading it. It was just, super good. It's probably not very helpful, but it really was definitely a surprise in how much I loved it. Comparatively to like the last two volumes where, as I said, they were probably like 6 out of 10s. This one was like a 9 out of 10 for me. It appealed very specifically to my interests, but I think generally it's a pretty solid and decent volume as well. I think a lot of people will like this one. For Tokyo Pop BL, and actually the first of the BL that I read as well, for Tokyo Pop stuff at least. This one again appeals directly to me, in weird ways. Well, maybe not weird ways. There are things I can't tell you. This has been out for a little while, maybe. This is by Edako Mofu Mofu. And it is a single volume story about two friends, high school friends. They're now in university, or middle school, high school friends, I don't know. They've known each other a long time. And oh my god, I love this volume so much. Okay, so this drama, holy moly drama. This is the story of two best friends who are mutually pining over each other, right? But because of internalized homophobia and earlier rejection, won't admit their interest in each other, or they're not in a relationship. They won't acknowledge the attraction that they feel for each other. One of them has like a weird relationship with a woman who's cheating on her husband with him, and his feelings, trying to find love, because of the rejection that he's had from the person he actually loves, who told him, like, this isn't love, you're getting confused. He's now been searching for love in wrong ways. And the other guy only said that because of his parents, well, his father more specifically, his homophobia, and which kind of ingrained this idea that being gay is wrong and bad and, not right. So, despite absolutely knowing that he's gay at a very young age, he's never been able to admit his feelings to himself or to other people, especially as a positive thing. He's always rejected the way he feels, and always been like encouraging himself to just not get involved with those feelings, and he's kind of come to terms with the fact that he'll never be happy to his true feelings. And oh my god, angst, and oh it's so good. It has a happy ending, so fear not, dear viewers. It also has a spicy ending, so fear not, dear viewers. Yeah, I loved this a lot. I think that there was a really just well done scenario. I'm a sucker for, childhood friends to lovers anyway. Mutual pining, slow burn stuff is painful in the best way. And man, it was super good. It was super duper good. So another win for Tokyo Pop. We're at exactly 50% for this month, for standout BL and just like kind of average. And the kind of average ones aren't bad, but like the sheer love that I have for this book and the previous, man, Tokyo Pop, as much as I morally and literally just hate them, right, for past behavior, I can't not continue to buy the good stuff that they put out, which continues to be more and more stuff. It's frustrating, but I've said it before, will stand by it. I'm not a hypocrite. I will pay for the stuff that I'm interested in. And this I was interested in, and I bought it and read it and fell in love. And if drama, like hurt comfort, with a happy ending is your thing, absolutely check this one out. Is one that I haven't read yet. It's still in its plastic, in fact, and that is Therapy Game by Meguru Hinohara, Volume 1. This is the spin-off, 2-volume spin-off of Secret Triple X, and so this is the story of the characters' brothers, who obviously get into a relationship. Recently dumped and very straight, Shizuma tries to drink his sorrow away, only to wake up being spooned by a man. So yeah, that's Shizuma, who is the older brother of the protagonist of the original series, and I don't remember his name, but he's the younger brother. He's the brother of obviously the other male romantic lead or other partner in the original, and they're both introduced in the original volume. I haven't read this one, heard nothing but good things. I was hoping to get volume 2, but because of misprint issues and stuff, I'm just going to wait a little while until I'm pretty certain that the stock has been replaced by the newer reprint, because there's like a missing page/page duplication in the original printing. So I haven't opened or read this one just because I know that I'm gonna like it. I'd rather just have both volumes and read it all at once, rather than read it and then wait months and then maybe have forgotten it by the time I get to volume 2. So yeah. The original was pretty short and sweet and to the point and like quite wholesome. This one I've heard is a little bit more daring, a little bit more compelling in the dangerous sense. And so it'll be interesting to see how these characters interact. As I said, I've heard nothing but good things, so I'm looking forward to it whenever I get around to it. Which, who knows when that will be, to be honest. Finally for the BL, and finally for the manga as well, we have another Sublime title. This is Given Volume 5 by Natsuki Kizu. Ongoing BL about members of a band and the various relationship drama that ensues. We have a high school couple, we have a couple university students who have feelings, very complicated, messy drama feelings, and I mean our high schoolers have that too, but they're a little more straightforward, and they've gotten to a different point in their relationship than the college students, so we'll see how that pans out. I'm behind on this series. I've only read the first 3 volumes, so I have quite a few to catch up on. Not for any particular reason aside from I kind of wanted to build up a backlog before I got started on this. This has 6 or 7 volumes currently in Japan, so we're quickly catching up. And I highly recommend the series, even for people who aren't like BL fans. I think it's just a great romantic like character drama. I think it's like you should definitely check out the anime as well, the anime adaptation, because that was phenomenal. It's just super duper good. I loved it so much, and it appeals to I think a lot of different groups on a lot of different levels. And yeah, definitely give Given a try if you haven't. Don't be scared off by the fact that it's a BL and it's being put out by Sublime, because I feel like this may have been able to work under just the Viz label in a similar way that Blue Flag was able to, and they're not exactly the same, and this one is a little more like there's no heterosexual romance aspect in this one comparatively to Blue Flag, but I don't know, they have like similar vibes in a lot of ways. So yeah, give it a shot. So we have some light novels, and we're actually continuing the gay with these light novels. We have the 2 volumes of Sexiled. My sexist party leader kicked me out, so I teamed up with a mythical sorceress by Amiko Karuda, pardon me, and with illustrations by Kazutomo Miya. I've read both of these books. I read them on J-Novel when they first came out. Loved them. Wrote reviews for both of them, in fact, and which are readily available to read on EnglishLightNovel.com if you're so interested. Fun, funny, feminist Yuri comedy about 2 young women who exist in this fantasy world that meet and befriend each other, and they're very heavily implied are in a romantic relationship. After and kind of systematically break down the sexism within society and within this fantasy society, which is a larger allegory for real human life society, and playing with the sexism inherent in fantasy tropes and things like that as well. It's just a dang good read. Honestly, it's super duper wonderful. I don't know if we'll ever get more of this. I think it ends at a pretty wonderful spot. It doesn't need any more. But I also wouldn't mind reading more about these characters, because I think there's a lot of fun and interesting potential with them. So definitely check it out. It's one of my favorite series to come out of J-Novel, which is saying a lot because I do like a lot of their series, including the next one that I'm going to be talking about. And if you're a fan of Yuri light novels and fantasy settings, give this one a shot. And finally, holy moly, it took a while to get here, and I'm actually surprised we still have some light out, to be quite honest with you all. But this is the 4th and final volume of this part of Ascendance of a Bookworm, by Miya Kazuki with Yoshino's illustrations. So this is Ascendance of a Bookworm, I'll Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Part 2, Volume 4, or Part 2, Apprentice Shrine Maiden, Volume 4, which is the final of this arc. But for those in the know, you are aware that there are actually 8 or 9 arcs of Ascendance of the Bookworm, and each arc gets progressively longer and longer and longer. I think Part 3 has 5 volumes, and by the end of it, there's 9 volumes per part. So this is a very long series. It originated as a web novel, as many current popular light novels do. This is an isekai about a young woman, Japanese woman, who, after being crushed by her book collection, who's an avid reader, loves books, is sent to a fantasy world as a sickly child, a world in which printing and books are not widely spread and well known, and easily accessible. So her goal is to make the printing press more accessible, so at some point she can become the librarian that she's always wanted to be. So yeah, there's some magic thrown in there. There's some really interesting fantasy stuff going on there. Main is the main character, the girl on the front here. Her character arc is really interesting. Typically I'm not, I don't hate isekai or anything, but this is more in line with my tastes of isekai, female focused. It kind of reminds me a bit of stuff like 12 Kingdoms, where the character has a lot of agency and is trying to better the world, and in her small way is very successful at that. comparatively to a lot of the male power fantasy stuff that is more typically associated with the isekai genre right now. But yeah, I mean, Ascendance of a Bookworm is great. I haven't actually started the next arc, part 3, just because I haven't had a lot of time for any reading, let alone novel reading, so I need to get on that at some point. But yeah, I do think that this is a really wonderful series. Definitely check it out, even if you aren't like an isekai fan. It's one of the better ones in the genre. The anime is great. That's gotten a release from Sentai, or is getting a release. I don't know if it's quite out yet. It's super duper good. I highly encourage you check it out, and let mine enthrall you with the history of books and the printing press. So that's everything that I got for this month of March. Oh my goodness, so many books. So many books. I caught up on a couple things. I started a couple things. Did I finish anything? Yes, I finished Goodbye My Rose Garden. I only finished one thing. But I also started collecting a completed series, so I have a couple more volumes of that to get. I think I did pretty good. What do you guys think? Obviously, as always, my hauls aren't ever as big as some people's who get absolutely dozens and dozens upon dozens of books. So my idea of like what a huge haul is different from people who get very regularly get 70, 90 books a month. But this is still a lot of books. Thankfully, I've read most, if not all of them, whether that be in the print edition or prior to their release. So I don't actually have a huge amount of the collection that continues to go unread. I do have some notable exceptions to that, but I continue to work hard on my backlog, which is not super duper long, thankfully. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on any of these titles, whether you've read them, if you're interested, if you love, hate, anything. Have you tried any of these new debuts? Are you wanting to follow any of these series? Have you heard good things, bad things? Let me know a series that I've talked about in the past that encouraged you to try and buy a book, and let me know if you did enjoy it or maybe you hated it. I also am kind of curious on that. Otherwise, if you're wanting to follow me on other social medias, the link to my Twitter is in the description below. For those subscribed to the channel, you know that I post on a regular basis. I did just post the most recent episode of the Read Right to Left podcast that I co-host with my wonderful and close friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures. Go follow her on YouTube as well, where we talk about manga. We recently did a creator spotlight of my favorite mangaka of all time, Fumi Yoshinaga, and we very regularly do series spotlights, genre spotlights, and creator spotlights. So if you are wanting a podcast about manga, run by two manga fans, check that one out. We're on YouTube here as well as on Spotify and every other podcasting platform there kind of exists. Otherwise, I do post first impressions, manga or series recommendations, as well as art book overviews, as well as like kind of updates on the collection at large, how I organize things, and the room that I keep everything in, my decoration stuff, things like that. So if you're not described, if you're not subscribed but you want to, please you consider doing so. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.